welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I thought I'd do a starfish piece, and I've done starfish before. The last one I did was holding a piece of green sea glass, which I thought turned out kind of pretty. It was a brittle star. This one's going to be kind of a stylized starfish. It looks almost like an asterisk, but that's my little weird sketch that I drew, and we'll see how it turns out. So let's give it a try. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks you can get on my merch store. There's a number of different designs. They almost all have some useful silversmithing information on the back. This one has flow temperatures of various types of solder. Probably the most useful one to me was the one that converts from gauge to inches to millimeters. I have one of those that I pull out now and again. What I really like them for, though, is it allows me to keep a record of all the different projects that I've done over the past few years, and it has this nice grid that allows me to draw better pictures too. So that's another feature on these. So get yourself a couple of these off the merch store. They're pretty useful. Get yourself a couple of these off the merch store. I think they're pretty useful. So here's my funky little starfish, and here's my thought about how to build him. I'm going to make his little arms out of 8-gauge half round, and I'm going to taper it. The center part of the starfish is basically a pentagon, so I'm going to just cut out a pentagon out of some sheet. I have this 22-gauge sheet I was using on the last project, and so I'll cut a pentagon out of that and maybe dome it, and then we'll start adding some, we'll add the arms and we'll see if we can solder them on nicely so it kind of looks natural. And then we'll see if we can add a bunch of little tiny balls on top. Oh, and I think I need a wire that goes down the middle of each of these, probably. So something thin like 20 gauge or 22 gauge maybe even. And then we'll see how it comes out. I think it should be kind of a simple-ish project, but I want it to have a nice three-dimensionality to it. That's why I'm doming the center of it instead of just making it a flat piece. And then we'll throw a bail on at the top at the end, and if you're interested in seeing how to make these kind of bails, here's a video right there about that. It's kind of a good standard bail, and you'll see it at the end and know what I'm talking about. Alright, so let's, here's some 8-gauge half round. I think, let's see about how long we need these to be. Maybe we should scribe out the pentagon first. What do you think? I think that's the one I used to draw the starfish. But since we're going to dome it, it's going to be a little bit smaller because it's going to be domed upwards. The question is, how much bigger does it need to be? I'm thinking like that. Or let's go like with this one here. So let's make a mark on this one. So I know that that's the one I want to use. Let's just scribe a little shape like that out of here. Make sure this is... Sometimes the edges of things are a little bit damaged when you roll it out yourself. I'm going to try and cut it out right about there, I think. So let me find a T-pin. I think after I cut this out, when we get ready to attach these to these corners like this, it kind of makes sense that we file those inwards a little bit and maybe taper this inward a little bit to get kind of a natural look to it. Well, let's see how it domes out, and then we'll go from there. It'll be an interesting experiment. You can use your saw if you prefer to do it that way. Something with straight shots like this, I think I can probably just use the cutters. I kind of always want to put a ricochet sound, like a cartoon ricochet sound, or the kind they used in old Western movies. Whenever I cut something off and it goes flying across the room. I don't know where to get a good sound effect that I don't have to, you know, pay a fee to use or something. So if anybody knows any good sources for public domain sounds. That would be handy to know. We can always cut a little bit thicker sheet. I have some 18 we could use as well. Or we could split the difference and roll it out to 20. I don't think we need to dome it much more than that, probably. I shouldn't think, anyway. We could solder these arms on and get them to be pretty much flush with the, because of this doming, it dips down at each corner. So we could file off one corner and the rest of them will kind of keep it at the right level, so we solder that on there. And then we cut the next one off, and that way we can keep it at the right height and get them soldered on about correctly. That, because the only thing I was worried about was this is skinny flat sheet, and this is relatively tall half-round wire, so I wanted them to converge in a way that it looked like a single piece when we're done. So we'll see. All right, so let's. I think our next step is going to be to go ahead and start tapering some of these tentacles and figure out, not tentacles, but starfish arms. This one I drew looks like he's getting ready to get into a bar fight. He's got a fist up. So we'll call this the angry starfish pendant. Or the starfish who wants to fight pendant. Okay. So let's see if we're going to have that. I guess we should do this sort of based on. Well, let's do it about that long for each one. And it'll be easier to taper it while it's attached to the longer piece here. So I think I'm going to do a lot of the tapering by filing it while I'm just holding it this way. You could probably do this with some copper or brass mixed in. That would make it look kind of cool. Get a little bit of color into it. Be a little cheaper considering how expensive silver is right now. I'll kind of use this as the template for the other four. So, but I'm not going to make you watch me do the same thing over and over again. So I'll be right back. So we got these all tapered down a little bit, and I'm going to file one of these corners flat, and we'll see how that looks, and we'll go from there. Let's try and solder that on. See how it goes. Well, let's give it a try. So far, so good. Let's do another one. Alright, we got a 5-pointed star now. Now I think I'm going to take my Dremel and kind of curve in these little points here so it looks more like they kind of flow right into it. And we'll go from there. So I'll be right back. So I cut a piece of 20 gauge wire, and I need to solder these along the top of each of these. And so I'm going to sweat some solder onto the length of this. I bent it at the end so it would stay facing one direction and not move around too much and not roll so much. But let's get some solder applied to these. So I'm just going to pick some little tiny pieces on there. And then we'll try to apply that. That should probably be enough. That's kind of how I want it to be. So let's see if we can use a little flux to kind of stick it in place. So there's a lot more mass in the star itself than there is in this little wire. And so it's going to be super easy to melt that wire if I don't get the star hot enough before I start focusing the heat on the wire. I think that went on okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that. Like I said, this is 20 gauge wire. That's not bad. Alright, I'm just going to repeat that process 3 more times, so you probably don't need to see the same thing, so I'll be right back. So I got those all attached, and I started to curve them a little bit, just using my pliers. Like that. But the ends I want to kind of spiral around and put a little ball in the end of each, maybe. That would be kind of cool. So we're going to need to make some silver balls in a minute here. trick is using a round nose pliers without putting a big huge dimple like I did there. So you get to where you can do it pretty well, but I knew I was going to, and I knew I'd just file it out because I left some room for that. If you really wanted to go with the ocean theme, you could put little pearls in each of his little arms. That'd be kind of cool. Let me get this cleaned up a little bit, and then we'll make some balls. We'll start decorating it a bit. I'm going to put a few little balls in the center here, kind of going up and down the arms. They're starting to, but definitely one in each one of those things. So I'll be right back. Okay, I made 5 little balls here to fit out in those little coils. So let's solder those in. I already sweated a little bit of hard silver sheet solder on there, so let's get those fluxed and attached. Okay, so now I'm going to make a few little tiny balls to go in here. And after that, I'm just going to add a ring and put a bail on it. If you want to see how I make my standard bail, there's a link up there for you. But let's make a few little balls, and just out of some scrap wire. I'm going to make them pretty small. I suppose if you wanted to, you could use that wire that looks like little balls if you don't want to go through the hole, making a whole bunch of little tiny things like this. So I'm going to put them over here. I think probably I'm going to pick a little tiny bit of solder on each one of these too, just like we did before, and then we'll start placing them. One of the things, if you're putting on a bunch of little balls manually, after you solder them on, you always want to really try and pick them off, because it's hard to tell sometimes whether you got a really secure solder joint there. And when you're soldering something tiny to something quite a bit more massive, that disparity of mass makes it hard for both to reach temperature at the same time. And so oftentimes you get the piece or you get the ball hot enough for the solder to stick to the ball, but it doesn't really adhere to the piece you're trying to solder it to. And when that happens, it won't stay on. It's not really a good solder joint. So. Get up there. You could also probably use some paste solder and just kind of hold them in place with that. That seems like it might work. Let's put one of these in each juncture there to start with. What we can do now is, sometimes you can pick these up. Add them on as we go. They're missing one right there. I need a few more balls, so I'll be right back. See, angry starfish ready to fight. You could continue them down further. I think I'm not going to, but let's see how this looks first. So this is a technical silversmithing term called picking your balls. Alright. Okay, I put a little ring on the top of one of the little arms, and I ran one of these types of bales I was talking about through there. We just have to solder it shut, and then we can pickle it and get it all polished up. little squirt bottle is squirting in a weird direction. Okay, so I'll let that pickle, and then we'll take a look at it once it's all polished up. Okay, well here's our little starfish. I think he turned out alright. I still have a little polishing compound I gotta pick out of there before I take pictures, but I like him. It's not perfect. I made a few, you can see where I soldered them together a little bit in spots, but it's a first go around. I think if I was to redo it, I could make it pretty well. So I'd give myself a 90% on this one. But I like it. I think it's kind of cool and flowy and nice. Tell me what you think. Tell me what your favorite sea creature is. I'm always curious. I've done, what else have I done? I've done octopi. I've done what do you call them? A jellyfish before. I don't think I've ever done a seahorse. I don't really like the way seahorses look. They're weird. But tell me what you think. Alright, we'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. Alright, well that was Chad's little weird starfish. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did enjoy it, I appreciate it if you'd hit the like button before you go, and maybe even hype the video if you think of it. I'd also love it if you'd visit my main channel page. I have 630 plus videos over there now, so I've been doing it for about 4.5 years at 3 per week, so there's quite an accumulation of content over there, and I think some of it's pretty useful, so check it out. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost anything. It helps me a great deal. And tell your friends about the channel. Feel free to share my channel with others. I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I have 2 new ones. I have Jeannie C. and I have Never Rick Roll You. Thank you for signing up. I think you'll find that my Patreon is a great group of people over there, and I hope you enjoy getting to know some of them. I appreciate not only the financial help that they provide me, but also the nice community that they built over there. So thanks for that, you guys. My YouTube subscribers, we just passed 28,400, which is amazing. Thank you for that. I really appreciate the nice comments and the good suggestions and the sharing what you know about different topics. I really appreciate that stuff. Thank you also for the kind contributions, the buy me a coffees, the super thanks, the purchases from my shop, my ebooks. All of that stuff makes my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without your help. So thanks. Visit the video description down below if you want to visit some of the links that are important to me. There's one to my Patreon if you want to check out that community over there. There's a link to my merch store should you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks I showed you at the beginning, or some other cool merch. There's a link to my newest ebook, which is 2025's tutorial guide. It has a page for each of the videos I did during 2025 with a link and a whole bunch of different information in addition to the video itself. So it's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel. So thanks in advance if you do that. There's even a package deal for all 3 years I've done that for, which is 2023, 2024, and 2025. So I think you get $15 off if you buy all 3 at once. All right, well thanks for watching today. All right, well thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.